Find the perfect ride for you today with the New Year New Ride sales event at Guam Auto Spot. Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Outlander Sport starting at just $22,995 or only $156 per paycheck. Visit GuamAutospot.com or call 671-478-AUTO.
Find a plan that goes with your flow. Get unlimited local talk, text, and data at the most affordable rate with Unlimited Flow Postpaid, only at Docomo Pacific.
Wendy's Guam is back with a great meal deal. Their 2 for $8 deal is the perfect way to satisfy both your hunger and your wallet. Mix, match, and choose any two from the Dave's Single, spicy or classic chicken, and 10-piece crispy or spicy nuggets. That's right. Pick any two for just $8 only at Wendy's. Request 2 for $8 deal to obtain the discount. Not valid for a la carte or combo meal orders. Individual items at regular price. Excludes saucy nugs. Here's an exclusive Kandit Cold Stone Creamery Valentine's giveaway. Go to Cold Stone at either GPO or the Micronesia Mall from now through February 12 for a chance to win a creamy, decadent, fudge truffled ice cream cake for Valentine's Day. All you have to do is take a picture of your favorite ice cream flavor at either location and post it to your Instagram or Facebook with the hashtags heart emoji Kandit and CSC Guam V-Day and tag at Cold Stone Guam, and you'll be automatically entered to win. You want 2 entries in one visit? Take a selfie inside Cold Stone with those same hashtags and tag at Cold Stone Guam. 3 entries all at one time? Take a selfie with your loved one. Same hashtags, same tag. We will raffle a winner on February 13, and the lucky person can walk out of Cold Stone on Valentine's Day with your very own creamy, decadent, fudge truffled ice cream cake for Valentine's Day. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience.
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Good morning, my fellow Guamanians and Commonwealth Islanders. My name is Troy Torres. It is 10:28 a.m. on Thursday, February 6, 2025. I hope you all had a wonderful evening. I was supposed to go live much earlier, but we're having some technical difficulties, and I'm not a technology, pop culture, up with everything that's happening kind of person. So Eric Rosario had to really help me over the last hour figure things out. We finally figured it out, and so here we are. Good morning to all of you. I thoroughly enjoyed the morning of news talk on Brad Rosala's NMI News Service and Patti Arroyo's Patti Arroyo Show on the Wave 105.1. Getting a briefing on the daily news going on in Guam and the CNMI. And I'm pretty much caught up. But where I want to go today is an issue that's been discussed in other media previously, when on January 31, the governor's office, their legal counsel, Jeffrey Moot, sent out a FOIA to the Attorney General's office. And boy, I mean, the war started between the AG and the governor's office months ago. But boy, is this an escalation in tensions. Before I get there, I want to first, are you guys watching what's happening in the Philippines? So since the presidential election in the United States, I have this theory that Guam is about 2 to 3 years behind the Philippines in the same, almost identical political struggle. And it was just such a parallel in the U.S. presidential elections of last year versus the Philippine presidential election of 2 to 3 years ago, where you had a sitting vice president who was a woman running for president against a team that represented in America the hard right, arguably fascism, etc., etc. In the Philippines, what people thought might have been the hard right and fascism, but what it turned out to be over the past 2 to 3 years is a very big split between the Philippine president and vice president, where you have the vice president, Sara Duterte, the daughter of former strongman Rodrigo Duterte, representing that far right and that fascist element of that has popular support. The same sort of popular support that you're seeing in the United States. Well, at least somewhat now. And there were a lot of the promises were the same. Ferdinand Marcos, I believe he was a senator at the time of his election, if I'm not mistaken. He promised that when he got into office, he was going to lower the price of rice. Donald Trump promised he was going to lower the price of eggs. Of course, both those promises, smarter people knew that you just cannot affect the economy in that kind of way, and especially so suddenly. And of course, whatever, right? But if we're to look at the Philippines as a sounding board of things to come in the United States, then what happened last night in the Philippine House of Representatives might cause some trepidation, caution for people on the hard right in America when the House of Representatives in the Philippines impeached Sara Duterte. And I've been following that news, but I hadn't followed it close enough to realize that among the articles of impeachment, that I knew about the corruption charges, the misuse of public funds, the threats against President Marcos and his wife and the first family, death threats like on live television. You just can't make this stuff up. But she is also accused of murdering people and conspiring to murder people through what's called the Devout Death Squad. And so now this impeachment bill is what it's called. It goes to the 24-member Philippine Senate. Oh, and by the way, you only need a third of the House of Representatives in the Philippines to approve an impeachment bill and send that impeachment bill for a trial in the Senate. They got 200 some out of 300 some members of the House to agree to it, which is an extraordinary number. In the Philippine Senate, it's going to take a little bit more finagling because you have hardline Duterte supporters there, like Senator Ron Bato de la Rosa. And so, this is an interesting thing to watch, all kinds of chaos erupting in the Philippines. And it could be, it might just be a mirror of the future in the United States and how things turn out, considering that up until this point, United States politics for the past 3 years has largely followed Philippine politics. We are behind. And so there you have it. I just thought I'd throw that out there. It has nothing to do with today's discussion. Today's discussion is also about corruption, and it takes a different turn. So for the past 2 years, since Attorney General Douglas Moylan has taken back his office that he held as the first elected Attorney General, this is now his second stint. And over the past 2 years, Mr. Moylan has been one of the loudest, I would say the loudest public official about public corruption. He has not been able to secure any trial victories against those who he has accused of corruption. And a lot of that has to do with, I think many of us in the public arguably would be able to say, boy, did he go after the wrong people in those initial corruption indictments that he got against GRTA and public health. But, I think to the naked eye and obvious to those of us who are thinking minds, right, there's corruption. And we've all been waiting on the Attorney General to drop the hammer on, very obvious matters of corruption. And whether that's being investigated or not, he has not said. He's just said publicly that he's investigating a whole list of agencies to include the governor's office, but he didn't say what. Now, the shoe is fitting on the other foot with the Attorney General being accused of corruption. And it's not a new accusation. Attorney Peter Santos, who ran against Doug Moylan and Levin Camacho in the last election, even before Doug Moylan won, all the way through his transition, all the way to him taking office, all the way to this day, Peter Santos has been saying Doug Moylan's corrupt. Doug Moylan is incompetent. Doug Moylan is insane. And for those of you who've seen his comments, seen what he's written, you'll know that the pioneer of all things, Doug Moylan, is not a good person and definitely not a good attorney general, came from Peter Santos. And so it got some traction and it got the community talking. And in both public and private circles, mainly in private circles, the conversation increased. The discourse, the scrutiny about Attorney General Doug Moylan and his Office of the Attorney General has increased because of Peter Santos. But because of sometimes how Peter says things, it's just some people are like, never mind what Peter says. But I've been listening. I've been listening to it, and whenever Peter has sent over opinion pieces to publish, I've never said no to anyone's opinion piece, whether it was on the left, on the right, or in the middle. As long as it's, truly an opinion piece and serves the public, it serves a public purpose and all that. But everyone who's ever submitted one has always served a public purpose, whether I agreed with them or not. That's not my place, to say to publish only opinions that I agree with. And so Peter has submitted this stuff, right? And he's brought things to light. And then other people started to talk, other attorneys, some, most in private, some in public. You haven't really heard much from the legislature. There have been some concerns that senators have expressed publicly, seldom, and mostly privately, about their concerns about the sanity and competence of the Attorney General. The governor's office took things one level further. On January 31, Governor's legal counsel Jeffrey Moots sent a 4-page FOIA demanding 31 separate series of documents, mostly about the hiring of Mr. Moylan's brother, Scott Moylan, and into some high-level, high-paying position within the government corruption division, allegedly. And then another concern to the governor's office is the hiring of Sheena Lynn Hawkins, who is the Attorney General's fiancee, hired to be his chief of staff, making 6 figures, like more than $100,000. And there's other stuff that the governor's office also wants: financial records and procurement records, some of it relating to the billboards that he's put up. And they are making major accusations, major allegations against the Attorney General, basically saying that the Attorney General is corrupt, and his corruption has gone unchecked because he is the top local law enforcement officer on the island. And so no one under the current system, and I'll speak about what an option is in a second, no one under the current system can prosecute the Attorney General but the chief prosecutor or the prosecutors who work under his office. And so the governor's office took it upon itself, on top of this FOIA, to release a statement that says that if the Attorney General is not going to investigate himself, the governor, who is in charge of the safety of the island and the enforcement of the laws of the island, in her general position as the governor, is going to take this duty upon herself. And oh boy. Oh boy. And so, hold on. Make sure you get your coffee at 76 Circle K so that we can enjoy conversations like this all the time. And so, where you had for the past 2 to 3 years, the Peter Santos basically being he's like the Nola Hicks of Guam politics in the calling out of corruption. And the Nola Hicks, for the longest time, over in the CNMI, she used to be the Democratic Party chairwoman over there during the Ralph Torres administration. When everybody was scared of Ralph Torres, Nola Hicks would be in her bright colored shirts on the side of Beach Road with her sign that says "Impeach Ralph Torres" or "Governor resign now." I mean, it was a dangerous position for her to be in, but there she was, the only person sounding the alarm. This is Peter Santos. For the longest time, he was the only person sounding the alarm. And the alarm has gotten to at such a loud gong that not only is the governor now calling for investigations into the Attorney General for corruption, the public auditor is answering this call. In a statement this morning from Public Auditor BJ Cruz to Kandit, hold on, I need to open it up. I want to say it word for word. Stand by. My WhatsApp has been acting up. I have to exit from it and enter it. And then sometimes when people see the double blue, they're like, how come you didn't answer me? And I'm like, hold on, I have to restart my WhatsApp. I'm not trying to ignore you. If I was trying to ignore you, I just wouldn't answer you at all. That's the kind of person I am. This is from Public Auditor BJ Cruz. We have been asked to conduct an audit. We initially did not think there was a need to, but we may have to reconsider. I hate to have an audit affect our working relationship, but may have to do it. This is the concern of the public auditor. And so the reason we haven't had an audit lately or during the Doug Moylan administration is because the public auditor did not want to endanger the relationship that he has with Doug Moylan, with the Attorney General, because in terms of legal recourse for criminal justice based on the allegations made in audits, there's only one option, and that's the Attorney General. And if the public auditor screws up that relationship with the Attorney General, if the Attorney General is less than professional and decides to retaliate by simply not adhering or not investigating these audits or calling BJ Cruz's audits wrong, which would be even worse, right? Then there's going to be big problems. And this is where, remember I talked about what another option might be? I put in a question to the governor's office this morning. I asked Crystal Pacos and Augustine, and she said she's getting with the legal office. I asked whether the governor is going to appoint a special counsel to investigate the Attorney General. And so I don't know exactly what Guam law says about this, but I have to imagine that the legislature put in a mechanism so that in the case that the Attorney General is himself or herself conflicted in a civil or criminal matter, that the governor has the ability to appoint an independent special counsel to look at things. I don't know how that works in terms of conflict of interest, where the money would come from so that the special counsel wouldn't feel some sort of obligation to whoever the funder is or whatever the case may be. And perhaps this takes something like the legislature to figure out, right? But it's not such a bad idea. And I'll tell you why. I think that reasonable minds are beginning to be suspicious of the Attorney General. Because we were all sold, most of us, the majority of voters were sold on this idea about being tough on crime. What we've seen lately is a whole string of losses. There have been wins, there have been victories, but there have been a string of losses in prosecution. There are even allegations that some of the people who were prosecuted should never have been prosecuted to begin with. Allegations of prosecutorial misconduct. So in terms of crime anecdotally has not gone down. This tough on crime stance has been thwarted by an exodus, a revolving door of prosecutors over at the Office of the Attorney General. So there's a concern there. That probably is, I would imagine that to be the chief concern among people. And then there is this recent string of assaults on basically the poor. And I mean, you had, unless this was donated stuff, which would also raise some questions if it was donated, but unless it was donated stuff, you had the use of public resources to pay for, I mean, it almost looks like Ku Klux Klan dressing. Like you had members of the Office of the Attorney General dressed in all white, made to look like Ghostbusters, but ended up looking like the Ku Klux Klan with their pan-busting whatever insignia. I don't know if public resources were used for that, but I mean, I have to imagine it would have been a pretty penny to go out and to harass the poor. And it hasn't just been the people on the streets panhandling. It's been more than just that. Then there's those who have been harassed by the Attorney General's office. Then you have all the billboards that have gotten, crazier and crazier every month. The call for a tent city at Adelup, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There's just so many things. It's kind of hard to list them all because so many things have happened that place the Attorney General's office's competence and even sanity into question. And then the Attorney General's Chief of Staff from the jump, Yoli Elliott, she resigns abruptly. There's no reason given, and she disappears back into private life. And not too long after that, Chief Deputy Attorney General Joseph Guthrie hires Sheena Lynn Hawkins to replace Yoli Elliott as Chief of Staff to the Attorney General. The Attorney General says, she's not my wife. We're not related. She was in charge of the administrative affairs of my private law office, and I trust her, and these are qualifications that I need for Chief of Staff. And while, that's understandable in a sense, it doesn't pass the smell test. Like, it just went too far. The Attorney General has said that the governor is defaming his brother and his fiancee by scrutinizing their employment and whatever, right? And find their pay and all this stuff in the public court. But here's the thing about being in the public arena, especially having a high-level position like an unclassified position like Chief of Staff to the Attorney General's office, you open yourself up to public scrutiny. The white-hot light of public scrutiny applies to you. And so the threats of defamation lawsuit, that doesn't come anywhere near close to upholding a standard of transparency. When the governor hired her son-in-law, Hai Hyun, to be her legal counsel, and he was a lawyer, and she trusted him. So same sort of arguments that the Attorney General has. People, Kandit included, scrutinized the hiring of someone who is so close in the governor's family, married to the governor's daughter. He ended up resigning. There are instances of nepotism in the administration as well. You have many relatives of the lieutenant governor in high-level positions. And nepotism has been a part of the public posture for it's just not easy. It's not easy to find people to work in both Guam and the CNMI and not run into issues of, isn't that your cousin? That's your brother or your sister. But just because it's happened before doesn't mean that our Attorney General has to repeat that behavior. And so many things, it's not even coming to light. These things came to light because of Peter Santos. But so many things that Peter Santos brought to light being elevated. And now you have the governor of Guam basically sick of the Attorney General. You have to be done with a person in a position like that in order to go after that person. Because the governor must anticipate that Doug Moylan is going to retaliate. And he has shown his ability before to grind the wheels of government to a halt if he doesn't agree with you. He did that with the signing off on contracts for all of those different agencies for all of those months. It's like so much. So the governor is being accused by Senator Chris Barnett, Senator Therese Terlahi, the Attorney General, and some of her opponents of not being able to effectively administer ARPA funds, to obligate ARPA funds by a deadline, especially involving Guam Memorial Hospital. That's the most recent thing. But what her opponents are failing to inform the public about is that the reason that anything that had failed to be obligated within the deadline, the reason that happened was because for several months contracts couldn't be signed because the Attorney General was at war with the governor. and would not sign off on things, claiming that there was an inherent conflict of interest that needed to be cured by the courts. And so the courts had basically said the Attorney General was wrong, and things started back up. But by that time, we were fast approaching the ARPA obligation deadline. These are the things, my dear friends, that we all have to consider. And if we're being honest with ourselves and not partisan, and not like having some cultist reliance on our emotions and our feelings about a person, but instead about the merits of how that person is utilizing the public trust in that office, we would clearly and objectively see that there is something wrong and something that needs to be remedied over at the office of the Attorney General of Guam. Because I'll tell you this, now that the governor has expanded the battle against in this war against the Attorney General, or the Attorney General's war against her, whatever it may be, and since the Attorney General has already committed to not sign off on projects dealing with the new hospital and medical campus over on Route 15, it's going to be chaos. The Attorney General, if he has it his way, if the legislature does not step in, or whoever does not step in to undo all of this, we are going to experience a Guam Memorial Hospital development on the same trajectory as Simon Sanchez High School, as in, it ain't gonna happen. And as an objective, clear thinking, I really don't care about Doug Moylan or Lou Leon Guerrero person. That's unacceptable to me as a citizen, as an aging citizen. And so, you know, some people might not want to hear this, but Peter Santos was right all this time. Where Peter Santos has called me up and gotten mad at me and said, you know, you need to be paying more, you need to be reporting more about this because this is what's happening. And wherever I have either ignored him, disagreed with him, or just didn't have the time to research what he was telling me, that's on me. I was wrong. For everybody else who has dismissed what he's had to say, didn't believe him, didn't think it was worth looking into, you were wrong as well. And it's clearly showing. And I mean, I don't know. Is there anything else to be said about the subject? If you have anything to say about the subject, feel free to write it in the comments. I assure you, however, in my new outlook on how the public discourse should go, if you say something really stupid, I might allow it to remain. But if it begins to annoy me, I'll just simply block you and delete your comment, because that's how we roll. You all have a wonderful morning. God bless you, and I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me.